Good morning. Good morning. Guess what? It is Monday, one of my favorite days of the week. A lot of people hate Mondays. I love Mondays, but that's because every other Monday I get to interview some amazing, amazing folks. Welcome back to the $1,000,000 Monday call, which we are renaming the $1,000,000 Mastermind in 2025. We have some amazing, amazing folks lined up for you guys for 2025. And the purpose of these calls, or now that you can see this in video, the purpose of this meeting is to bring you new concepts, new ideas, further develop some of those ideas, give you a little bit of insights into the minds of the individuals who we bring on the calls on various topics to help you to improve your business. This may help you to improve the niche that you have defined for your market in your industry, or identify a new niche, or even just give you some new ideas, some refined tools or tactics to improve your business practices. So today we have one of my favorite guests. She is not a stranger to Recharge, but I love to invite guests to come back to further delve into a topic, to further uncover additional opportunities that may exist in a space. So today we have with us the president and CEO of FP Commercial Advisors, Lowery, to give you guys more insights and information around commercial real estate. One of the things that I know, being a 20-year vet in real estate, is when I first started in this space, commercial real estate was not even on my radar. However, even as a 20-year vet, I find that it's challenging to break into that space. So I'm going to invite Lauren to the stage today with us to share some more insights, share her journey a little bit and how she kind of transitioned into commercial and what opportunities may currently exist in that space for others. So help me welcome to the stage Miss Lauren Lowery. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me, Sanina. So happy to be here.
Thank you for being with us. And rather than give your amazing, amazing background and bio, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your background and your journey. So share with us what kind of inspired you to pursue a career in commercial real estate, and how did you transition from residential to commercial? Did you start out at commercial or did you transition into that space? Tell us about your journey.
So thank you so much for asking, Sanina. And I'm going to be as candid with you and your team as possible. Today, I think it's important that we really cut to the chase around real estate and topics that include sort of commercial real estate, but entering into any field as a person of African descent, I believe that you probably have a diverse group, a diverse team. But for me and you, we have to think about things a lot differently. We have to think about the environment a lot differently as we, intend to, tackle and not just tackle, but succeed in a great way in these spaces. So I will tell you my not crazy background. I don't have any sort of unique background. And that's what I always want people to know. I mean, I think to find yourself in commercial real estate, it's about tenacity and not about sort of where you started. So I'll give you the entire 5 minute, 4 minute Lauren Lowry background. I'm a Chicago South Sider. Grew up in the Washington Heights area. Went to Mount Vernon High School because as a Chicagoan, I also work in other spaces. You have to prove you're a Chicagoan. You got to I was born at Michael Reese Hospital. Okay, so this is Chicago as it gets. I want you to realize when you come to the job. I mean the election season. I saw this one judge who said, "I was born in this parish at Little Company of Mary. Went to this Catholic high school. This." She was like, "Yo, I'm from Chicago and vote for me." Okay. So I appreciated that when I saw that. I was like, this Irish judge knows exactly what to do. But I'm from Chicago, South Side, went to Mount Vernon High School, went to Lindblom Technical High School in the heart of Inglewood. Almost every day my freshman year, we were chased back and forth uh, from the neighborhood, gangbangers who wanted to get us. And this was certainly over 30 years. Hopefully things have changed. Um, and still spend time at Lindblom. My goddaughter attends Lindblom Technical High School. I went from there to Northwestern University. Wonderful place to learn and be educated. It's still, I think, somewhat of it's rigorous curriculum there. I mean, you have to jump right in. You cannot delay one day from study and to be very serious about what you do there. It makes everything else in your life a lot easier when you sort of go through the rigors of Northwestern. And then, of course, at that time, there was a lot of Black people there, but of course, it was still a little bit aggressive. Like my major at the time as a freshman was mechanical engineering. When I arrived to my first MEBO1 class, that's mechanical engineering class number one, there were about 50 white gentlemen there in Lauren, and it definitely scared me to death. Again, this was 30 years ago. Things have changed, hopefully, in these predominantly white institutions. Seriously consider HBCUs. And it did it spooked me a little bit. So I didn't know exactly what I wanted, what I was going to do. I always wanted to major in urban and regional planning. Unfortunately, when I arrived at Northwestern, they deactivated or, they stopped that curriculum. So I had to go into engineering. I thought ME was better. I ended up um, graduating with sort of a combined engineering studies program that incorporated civil, industrial, and urban economics. Um, and my father was a real estate broker. My father was an accountant and a real estate broker. So it's important to know that, it is sometimes easier if you see it. And we always see real estate brokers. If you live on the earth, you are involved in real estate. So I started, never really worked for my father. I worked for a company called Draper and Kramer Incorporated. They are here in the city today. They held my license as a residential real estate broker. They held my license. My father was a real estate broker, which is why I ended up going from engineering to sort of real estate. I worked for Draper and Kramer. They had a unique program. I thought it would be good. And then I sort of immediately was immersed in sort of residential real estate. Draper and Kramer has property management, the finance, they did commercial at the time. They did a whole lot of different things. I worked in property management on the leasing team. And I decided that within 2 years of working for that company, I realized that there was like one Black guy who was like, to me, sort of a figurehead there, and he didn't make decisions. Draper and Kramer was a family-owned business, and I didn't see him as sort of a aspiration. Like, am I going to grow in this company? I'm not sure. My old boss at Draper and Kramer is a very good friend of mine. We are business associates and investors today. He was the smartest guy there. He was innovating with Excel, sort of using technology to really run that business. I saw what he was doing and he was not being promoted. I said, I've got to leave. So I started Finders Plus Real Estate. Immediately started representing major companies and bringing their executives to Chicago and finding them places. And, worked. And probably 1995 ran out of money. And, as working for myself as a young person, straight hanging out, didn't have the business acumen to really focus and decided to get a job. And that job I got was with Matanke Realty Group. You see them now. They're a very small organization. They own the property that's at 55th and the Dan Ryan. Yep, they've got a big sign there, makes it look like it's a big company. It was literally 6 people. And learned from them. They're the type of group. My old boss is a guy named Jim Schmidt, former South Shore guy, beautiful European American who basically drank all through the day and basically had me do everything. Within that 2 years of working for them, I learned everything you needed to learn about commercial real estate and left and created FP Commercial Real Estate with several clients. And that's how I got involved in commercial real estate.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that journey. I love how you started with that you are a Chicagoan. There's something unique about the way we feel about being from Chicago, but I think that's pretty unique to most cities. It's funny, yesterday's message at church, not to veer off, but this is in line with that message. We had a guest pastor and he called himself a pilgrim. He's not from Chicago, he's from Jersey. And so making, he was commenting on what we eat sauce on our fries, and all of these things that are unique to Chicago that other regions of the world may not be accustomed to. And so there is something that's reassuring and comforting about knowing that you're from where I'm from. And, one of the things about real estate that I think creates that relational aspect of real estate is, that level of commonality, right? One of the things that would make me work with you over another agent or this agent over that agent is that sense of commonality. And so what I've also heard you say is you picked up the skill sets needed by working in the field. You were an engineer, you worked in property management, so you've learned all of these skill sets, and it sounds like these skill sets were transferable, so much so that you said, "Hey, I can do this. I can do this better than the guy who taught me how to do this because I'm actually doing his job." Right? And so you kind of ventured out to do that on your own. What would you say are some of those skills or attributes, characteristics even, that you think are essential for someone as they're transitioning into that commercial space, from maybe being a solo actor on the residential side to representing corporate clientele? Like what gave you the courage or the gumption even to think that you could do this? Was there like something that indicated, you know what, I'm ready, I can do this?
So I'm going to tell you sort of the good and bad about being in commercial real estate or being involved in the space. So again, things have changed, but the Europeans that I encountered, even at my job, even at the company I worked for, being in the industry, was pretty aggressive. I made a very quick transition from working to someone to representing major organizations. And I had Europeans come to me and question whether or not I could actually offer them this $20 million 20-year deal. So they were questioning me all the time. But what they couldn't do is question the background. So immediately upon it, I'm not this kind of person. You should know that my sister's a librarian. My mother was a second grade school teacher. I come from a very quiet household. And Europeans would come to me and just start asking, like, well, who should I talk to besides you about this deal? And I would have to go, well, you should talk to your boss, Jim. I did a deal with him 3 years ago, so you should ask him whether or not I can offer you this deal or whether or not I should take this someplace else. You have to be like unbelievably aggressive. The confidence level has to be there. And I think you have that confidence when you work with people in the space. So my advice generally could contradict a little bit of sort of this conversation, but I feel like my infusion into the space already, sort of being introduced, working for this company already, made it a lot easier for me, but still challenging to say, now I represent Dunkin' Brands. I now don't just represent on the property owner side, I represent this tenant, and this is what I can do, or this is what we'd like to do, and maybe we can do it together. And eventually, word got around. They're like, dang, that little girl, that little black girl actually represents Dunkin' Brands. You know what I mean? So you could tell that in their faces. But the thing to do and even today, it's about relationships. So you have to relationship build all the time. You're not going to represent the Gap unless you know somebody at the Gap, or someone who can refer you to someone at the Gap, or you have your inside information. They're not just going to call you out of nowhere. It's about relationships, and I had some of those relationships already. The best thing to do if you have a deal, like if you have, is to represent a company. Like if like your company is going to do, like Recharge is going to do, they're going to have several offices all over this country. And what's going to happen is you want to say, well, I represent Recharge now. And how am I going to do that? What you want to do, if you've never done a commercial deal before, is you want to do that deal with another agent who knows commercial real estate. So you don't want to go and say you do it yourself, because you're going to do a disservice to your client. Data, information, metrics, all those things are important. How you present your letter of intent to that particular property owner, or to that broker, or to that, whoever, other broker, whatever, is important. The minute it doesn't look like something that is professional, like all the other people in the industry know and do, They know that you're not ready. They know they're going to trick you and they're going to manipulate you and your client. So they're not going to give you the amount of free rent that you need. They're not going to give you the tenant improvement dollars that you're supposed to get. They're going to insert language into your client's lease that is going to be detrimental to them moving forward or them being successful. So people know when you don't know what you're doing in the industry, which is why it's always better first to partner with someone who knows the industry, follow them, know what they do. Don't just give that client to this professional. Know, figure out what they're doing, ask to see those contracts. And then how to ask, how do I do it? There's a bunch of people. I never had one mentor. I didn't have anybody who looked like me really doing my job. And I literally had to take everything I could come up with from all the people around me to figure out, how to do it. And luckily, I did work for an organization and I learned fast because I was only there for 2 years. And I recognized at that time too, it was very aggressive for women too. They did not like women. I'll tell you stories later. But you just have to learn everything you can and then be as professional as possible, get all the data and information necessary. But your number one is confidence and networking.
So I love that you actually answered my next question, which was what would be some of your strategies when it comes to building the network in the commercial space. But what I heard you say, which is similar to what I did when I first started in real estate, was to partner with someone else who has the experience. I would shadow my managing broker and go on showings with him and just listen and just sit in the car and listen to his phone calls, and go listen to how he's interacting with the client. And that it builds up your confidence. It expedites your learning curve. And then at some point you realize he's really not saying anything that's really that deep. I can do this, but you don't know what it sounds like until you hear it. And then now it's like, okay, I can mirror that. I actually can improve on that. But it gives you a good foundation. So I love that. Um, Relationships are everything when it comes to real estate. You and I have partnered on a few opportunities that have come across your desk. And so I just love that we've been able to build a relationship that's collaborative and not competitive. So many times in real estate, other agents feel like they have to compete with one another. Oh, this is mine. I'm going to figure it out on my own, and they'll go to the death trying to figure out a deal, how to put it together, even if they don't have all of the tools and the relationships to do so. And there's a number of people that I partner with in real estate who do the same thing that I do, or that may be in a space that I'm not in. And I may have relationships that they don't have. And people recognize that and see, hey, why don't we partner on this deal? There's enough money for us to both make money. I don't have to have it all. And that to me is the power of relationship and is the power of collaboration. So let's talk a little bit about the deal making process when it comes to commercial. Many times commercial deals can take significantly longer, than residential transactions. I realize that there aren't necessarily standard contracts like there is in residential real estate. What does that look like when you encounter a client who wants to make a deal? Who initiates the paperwork? Is that the attorneys getting heavily involved? Do you create your own documents? Like, walk us through a transaction from the onset and how that kind of is constructed.
So thank you for that. Yeah, unfortunately, commercial real estate is, sort of madly diverse. And then when people think commercial real estate, you think retail deals. So first floor commercial space real estate deals. You think office deals. So there are office, sort of contracts that would look, or leases that would look very different than maybe your retail lease. Um, there's so many ways to be involved in commercial real estate. And so commercial real estate, people also consider that sort of, operating in multifamily and multi-unit types of properties. So you're going to have a lot of different, sort of strategies and language and vocabulary for those types of deals. And then although industrial real estate is, very much, still radically different, people still sometimes consider that a commercial type of deal, sort of could feel sort of commercial in nature depending on sort of how that industrial deal is transforming itself. So yes, you every every deal is very different. And so if I focus on retail, which is what I prefer to do, so I consider myself an urban retail specialist, but I have to do a lot of office deals because clients in our neighborhoods also will have that second, third floor office. And if I'm going to help that client achieve 100% occupancy, I'm going to help them with that too. It's not my preference, but I will, and I have. I represent probably right now over 50,000 square feet of office space, but I prefer retail. And I prefer commercial real estate in general, just so you know. I always like to share this, but I didn't, and I'll get to your question, is that commercial real estate is less dangerous and more fun than residential real estate. Residential real estate today, in the state of Illinois and the state of Florida, wherever you go, is a lot more dangerous to invest in and to work in. So you know that in residential real estate, if the fire alarm doesn't go off, they're going to sue, and something burns, they're going to sue that owner. That owner is going to be sued. If something happens in residential real estate and you kick them out, January 31st, they're going to sue you because the laws and rules in Illinois say you can't kick people out in the winter. I mean, in representing people, people can complain immediately. The public can complain immediately about something you do as a real estate professional just because they want to, even if you've done nothing wrong. It is too dangerous to do that. And all of a sudden, someone's investigating you for something that you had really did nothing wrong. I think it's very dangerous. So commercial real estate is the way to go, and it's also the way to go to invest, I believe, as well. It's just a business deal. You kick somebody out, if you lock them out of their place, it's just a business deal. You're gonna go to you're gonna go to court on whether or not you could or should have done that. And if you prepare your leases properly, you can do whatever you want to do as an investor. I am also a retail real estate investor, besides someone who represents both retailers and retail. So yes, every deal is different. It depends on what's going on. Who wants to create that contract, that lease, or whatever that contract is. Sometimes if you're doing a deal with a major company, let's just say I just did an H&R Block deal. H&R Block is a national organization. H&R Block wants the landlord to use their own lease. And if you have a strip mall that has, 10 tenants inside that all have similar leases because your lawyers, your team has created a lease that is favorable to you, what you don't want to see is a lease that is favorable to a particular tenant. It makes it difficult to property manage. It makes it difficult for you to understand what's going on and what you agree to as an owner and as a broker as well. So if you're representing a landlord if you're representing a strip mall and that landlord has a lease that they'd like to, it's going to manipulate a little bit. Leases will change, exclusive uses will change, things like that will change. But exactly what you've agreed to generally. And all of a sudden there's a tenant that wants to use their own. So it just depends. And of course it varies. If you're the broker representing the tenant, and the tenant does have a form that looks good, that represents and, sort of protects their interests, maybe you do want to use it. But generally, the landlord will initiate leases. And it depends on the kind of space that you're looking at. If you're looking at a strip mall, it's going to be radically different. You're probably going to be looking at I just had an 85-page lease come to me for a 2,000 square foot office space in the West Loop. Just unnecessary and unbelievable. We're about to drop that deal right now because clearly they're trying to do some things, COVID, they're trying to protect themselves from all kinds of crazy stuff. It's outrageous. So, it really depends. And you want to make sure that your client has the right legal team. You're not going to get a lawyer who does a lot of sports deals. You're going to get a lawyer who does a lot of residential deals. You want a lawyer that knows commercial real estate, commercial retail, commercial office. They specialize in something, and they can go through that lease, in 5 minutes and be like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Otherwise, you're going to agree to crazy stuff. And that tenant's going to be mad at you. Your client is going to be angry with you because you didn't catch things. Even if that was the lawyer's fault, they think that you also have the expertise. So it's dangerous, in terms of like sort of understanding everything, but it's less dangerous than residential. So stick with commercial.
Gotcha. So what I heard you talk about a lot there was specialization. You specializing more in the retail space of commercial, and I love that you brought that up because there's so many different aspects of commercial real estate. Being on the residential side, I often don't even look at the multifamily space as commercial real estate, but you're right. Over 5 units or more is considered commercial real estate, but it still has that air of residential because you're dealing with tenants and things of that, residential tenants. Um, but I love that. So, kind of finding your niche, if you will, and kind of working and specializing in the area where you've kind of developed a specialty sounds like what makes the most sense. And as with anything, as opposed to just kind of being all over the place. The other thing I heard you say is partnering with attorneys that also specialize in that area of real estate. There's so many sects of real estate, right? And one of the things that I find challenging with real estate attorneys is they often say, I do real estate law, but that's so broad. That doesn't mean you do everything and all things real estate, nor does it mean that you do them all well. And so identifying the attorneys that do or specialize in the area that you work in or where you specialize, I think is best. This has been really insightful. I love having commercial brokers on because I think it's one of those aspirational spaces for many residential brokers that kind of see that as an opportunity at some point, but aren't quite sure how to break into the space. So, what changes do you see, like what trends or forecasting do you see coming in the commercial retail space, specifically in your space of shopping centers? What are you seeing in that space over the next several years coming?
Well, this is a really, really challenging time for retail, depending on sort of how you look at it. And so, luckily for me, I've been in the business 30 years. I think last year, or year before that was my 30th year. And I basically had to remember that I've been doing this for this long. And I hate when people are, I've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. You know exactly probably what I know these days. You could have learned that in 10 years. I just had to do it in 30 years because there's no social media. No one was teaching me anything. I had to learn. Now you're going to have people mentor and teach so you can know exactly what I know right now. But the highlight to working in this industry for so long for me is I've seen these cycles come and go. I've seen retail be strong and I've seen retail be very challenged. So if you think about the business district in downtown Chicago right now, if you think about the business district along the Magnificent Mile right now, post COVID, you see a lot of empty spaces. You see a lot of um, sort of very sparsely trafficked corridors. And commercial real estate, it's all about traffic and visibility. How many people are going to come to this space? Or how many people are going to see this? That kind of thing. So you want every chance possible to make sure. That's why you need the data and metrics to make sure people are going to come into your space and buy things. So what I see is opportunity. I've seen unbelievable deals happen, and things happen in neighborhoods that were nothing, and now all of a sudden they're the best things. I've seen the West Loop transform itself into from Skid Row to what it is today. I've seen, areas where one of my favorite, historic warehouse disco, sort of venues was nothing. There was nothing going on there. And now, it's a historic landmark surrounded by $1 million condos and, unbelievable commercial office spaces. So you have to be forward thinking and recognize that when you see empty spaces, this is an opportunity to make deals with landlords, make deals with your tenants, make them understand and recognize the opportunities in these spaces that you think are challenged. And I think oftentimes, urban corridors are challenged. And I am only inspired and passionate about my job because I want to make sure that urban spaces look and feel just as safe, secure, and viable and vibrant as any other space in this city or any other neighborhood in this country. So we have a lot of work to do together. We have to invest in our own spaces. When I mean invest, we are real estate professionals, but we can be investors too. And we should know we're going to take chances on these spaces because you know how to bring them back to life or to make them safer or cleaner and make them, better for our communities. So we have to work together to make sure our communities are being represented the way they should be. Know who the owners are in your corridors. If they don't look like you, they may not have the interests that you might have in selling the best types of products. So I've gone on a different tactic, but I know we only have so much time. But I want us to make sure that if I'm talking to people, I want to make sure that we're sort of thinking about our own ability to make money, but our own ability to improve our own corridors.
Well, that's it for our $1 Million Monday call. There you have it, Lauren Lowery with FP Commercial Advisors. Thank you so much for being with us today, Lauren. You've been extremely, extremely informative and informational. I'm going to take you down for a sec, hang out with us. We'll make sure you get a copy of the recording. Everybody say bye, Lauren. Listen, you got to reach back. Each one, teach one. And one of the things that I heard her say, probably louder than anything, was this space was a challenging space for her to be in. I normally ask all of our guests, share with us some of your challenges, and inherently just being in the space, being a female, being an African-American female, they didn't necessarily respect her in the space. But here she is 30 years later. I love that for her. And I love that for you and I, having someone like a Lauren or like myself or like some of our other guests who you can glean from and reach out to say, hey, how did you do it? How did you transition into this space? Most of it is relationship, but it's also aspiration, right? And so I'm going to share with you guys a quote of the day. And it's really dependent upon what it is that you want to do. Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in real estate? And then lean into that, lean towards that, and move into that direction. And the quote goes as follows: you and you alone are the only person who can live the life that can write the story that you were meant to tell. And what I love about that quote is that's encouraging you to be the individual that you are. So whatever your space is, wherever you're meant to be, you just got to continue to walk in that path, and you'll continue to attract more and more opportunities for yourself in that space. That's it for today, guys. Thank you guys for sharing the $1 Million Monday Mastermind call with us today. I'm your host, Sanita Ellison Jones, CEO of Recharge Inc. and Recharge University. And we will see you on the next call. Bye.